Let's get started. We have a Chelsea clock here. It's a Tiffany signed Chelsea clock, and you can see on the dial it says Tiffany and Co., which of course you have to have that ampersand rather than the and in the Chelsea clock, just to make sure you understand it's a genuine Tiffany sign dial, which makes it worth like $1 billion more than it is if it doesn't say Tiffany and Company. Anyway, just to be clear, this is a Chelsea clock. It's from the 1940s, probably 1940 to 49, and you can see that there's both a barometer and the ship's bell clock. And the ship's bell clock is an in-house movement that they patented in 1900, with the Chelsea Clock Company becoming its own entity in 1897. It was a number of things before that, a Harvard Clock Company, et cetera, et cetera. But that particular Chelsea name came around in about 1897. You can see this one has the ship's wheel on both the barometer and the clock itself. The little structures screw in to the can of the Chelsea clock and the barometer. They're brass, solid brass, very heavy, and the outside part of the clock is bronzed. Here you can also see that the um, barometer glass is broken. It needs a little work. Thankfully, I've got a guy. I got a guy who can do that in Michigan. So we'll get that fixed up. But here you get a better look at the Chelsea and Company, or the Tiffany and Company dial, which is quite nice. And the condition is great. It's a very beautiful inside, but there is a bit of grease, and you can see that somebody had a little grease fest here. That is not kosher on a Chelsea clock. You do not want to have that much grease. I think it leaked out of the mainspring barrel, which happens over time. So we'll get that cleaned up, of course, as we take it apart. There you can see the number that indicates when it was produced. Both that's on the back of the can itself, on the case, and it's on the back of the movement. They both match, which suggests that nobody's messed with this in the past. Um, you can see the hammer of the clock itself. That's what chimes the ship's watches. This clock obviously is a ship's bell clock, which clocks the not the hours or the half hours in a normal sort of Westminster style, etc. It clocks the ship's watches, which start in the afternoon, say at noon, 12:30, 1:30 each time, hitting the gong and adding a gong to the previous one. So at 12:30 it's one bell, 1 o'clock is two bells, etc. We're going to get started with these screws, taking them off, take the face off. These Chelsea clocks have a lot of little screws, I'll tell you that right now. And like many clocks, but the Chelsea clocks have a lot of little screws. So you never know how many parts there are going to be in this Chelsea clock. It seems like there must be like 1,000 parts that you need to keep track of. So we're taking this apart and we're going to look at it and assess its health, try to figure out if there's anything that has to be done to it. I don't suggest that anybody just go ahead and do this on your own, because you're going to be sitting there in your living room with a TV tray with your ma, and she's going to be saying, "What are you trying to do with that clock?" And you've got the clock all over the place, grease on the Afghan, grease everywhere, and the dog's going to like come up and be hunting around. And I'll tell you what, if you drop any of these parts, the dogs love to eat those parts. The dog will eat the parts. And then you're going to be out in the yard trying to figure out whether you can do some archaeology to find those parts for the next couple of days. So my suggestion is to not do that. Also, because this isn't a simple thing to get back together. It takes a lot of care. So check it out and watch what we're up to here. But if you really want to have a Chelsea clock redone, my suggestion would be find a dealer who can do it. And you can also send it back to the Chelsea Clock Company and they'll do it right. So Here you can see the balance. Balance looks good. It's humming back and forth. You can see the small little screws on the side suggesting it's an earlier balance. The newer ones don't have those little tiny screws on the side. But it still looks pretty good, so that's a good sign that the balance staff may be okay. At least it likely is. So we'll start taking some of those parts off and see what we can come up with. First thing we got to do, obviously, is make sure that we let those springs down, because if you let those parts apart, like you take some of the plates off without letting this greasy barrel down, you're going to be in a world of hurt, I'll tell you that, and the whole thing's going to be blown to pieces. You can see this grease on here that is just not doing so great. But if I push this back, there we go. If we turn it a little bit and release the click lever and then slowly let the energy down, all that energy that somebody put in with their fingers by turning it, that's spring potential energy, you're going to be good to go. That spring potential energy will be let down, and the spring won't shatter your clock. So that's a good thing to do. Every time you start messing around with the clock, you got to let the barrel springs down immediately, and then you can start pulling things apart. Here we go. That's looking pretty good. Yeah, it's a good looking clock. I think it's in pretty good shape, actually. I'm pleased. You can look at the striking mechanism on the back. All those parts look pretty clean. They don't look like they're damaged at all or rusted, which is a good thing. Now I'm telling you that once this thing is back up and running, it's the most beautiful sound you've ever heard when you hear these gongs. And the ship's bell sounds like you're out on the Pequod or something. I highly recommend the Chelsea clock for that reason alone. Many of the earlier Chelsea clocks, also all the parts are gold plated. You don't want to do too much in an ultrasonic machine on these things, maybe a couple minutes, but not a ton. At least that's what the experts advise us. You want to clean these things off really, really well, but there's lacquer on there. There's other stuff that you don't want to interrupt. So let's see what else we can do here. Let's see if we can get some of these parts off. Now, this era of Chelsea clock has these little pins in it that hold the some of the back parts on. You can see with my pliers I can take the pin right off, and if you squeeze this tiny little pin, and it's a tapered pin, so you got to get it in the right direction, and that tapered pin will pop right off. Now you got to make sure you don't shoot it across the room, which is a little better on these pins than on the E-clips, which are a later invention on many clocks, including Chelsea's, which are basically the devil itself, because if you put those pliers on there and you squeeze, I did this the other day on a different Chelsea. Boy, there you can see the pin. There it is. I put that thing across the room. It hit something metal, and it was gone. And I swear to God, I'm never going to find it. Actually, the dog was rooting around over there a few minutes later, probably ate it right up, and it's going to be cycled through the compost, so to speak. So you know what? You got to be really careful with those little things. There goes another one. Yeah. Here, a little spring. We'll pull that off. We'll get that baby cleaned right up. Yep, and here we go. We're going to take off all manner of parts of the striking mechanism. The rack dog will come off in a couple minutes. The rack, all sorts of stuff that are designed to make sure that the bells chime at the appropriate time. Again, it's on the hour and the half hour, but they have to have a way of ascending the number of bells, and that's what that snail is in the center. You can see right in the center you've got that kind of double thing that you've got that is irregularly shaped and round. Let's just get this off for a second. Right in the center, and that's what you have parts that will sit against that, and that's effectively how it measures where you are in the 4-hour cycle. So yeah, we'll take some of these other parts off. We got good stiff. The lever there, the long one, helps to make sure that the second chime of it on an irregular number or an uneven number of chimes isn't chimed. So basically the Chelsea clock is designed to chime twice on the half hour, twice, like in groups of 2. But we've got a sort of secondary system that when it's on the half hour, that hammer comes down, but it gets stopped. And so on one bell, it chimes the first time, and then it tries to do it the second time, but it gets caught and doesn't hit the gong. 2 times at 2 bells, 3 times, two chimes, and then it's preparing to strike twice more, but it gets caught. That's kind of how this mechanism is designed by Chelsea, and obviously not all ship bell clocks that came after this are designed the same way, but this is a very high quality movement here. The plates are real thick too. You can tell it's a hefty piece of brass, not to mention the cans on this thing. So you're talking some pounds. You're not going to be weighing this thing with your normal mail scale. All right, let's see. Let's look at the rack dog there. It's looking good. Let's see if we can start pulling that apart. Gonna get that hammer out too in a minute. You can see right under my hand there's a little spring that comes down from the hammer too on the other side of this plate, which helps pull the hammer back. All right, we'll take this snail right off. Yep. When you're putting these back in, boy, those little screws have to be in the right spots. I'll tell you that. There are not too many things that are interchangeable on this movement. But a few of them are, including the intermediate wheels, which are, I learned that one the hard way. We'll get to those in a little bit. But those things are interchangeable, strangely enough. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay, yeah, we're going to mess with this rack dog for a second. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to take this off this way right now. We'll get that screw loosened up a little bit. I'll take that off in a minute. Okay. One thing that's very interesting about these clocks is that they were produced in the 40s in mass amounts. So this clock in the late 40s would have been produced sort of right after the big upswing in Chelsea production that took place during World War II. They produced many, many, many clocks to go on ships, and not necessarily ship's bell clocks, but radar room clocks, just standard ship's clock, because each ship needed a clock, and all the boats in the Navy, etc. Many of them had Chelsea clocks in them. Some of them they actually put, used the iridescent loom, radium loom, etc. on the dials. These don't have that, obviously, but some of the U.S. Navy ones do. So it was a big deal for Chelsea to get that contract and be producing those during the war as fast as they possibly could. All right, let's see what we got. Now with the hammer also has a pin. You can pull that baby right out. And you can see that once you pull that little hammer pin out, you'll be able to get that hammer off and just directly off the post that it's on. It's a little bit fussy sometimes, so if you just put those pliers on there and hold your thumb over there so you don't shoot that thing into oblivion, and have the dog be able to eat that baby right up. Now, Lily and Pepper are quite good dogs, but they are dogs after all, and they do root around for stuff. So we'll be making sure that they don't end up with any of those pins in their stomach anytime soon. Now that hammer's coming off, looking good. That's the long-handled structure that will prevent and you can see the spring there. That's in good shape, although it's got a lot of grease on it. Yeah, we got some grease issues here. We're going to have to clean this right up. Yep. But otherwise, it looks pretty good. There doesn't seem to be a ton of wear in the pivot holes and other things. I don't think this was used a ton, which is good. All right, we'll get this pivot off. This pinion off, but we want to make sure we don't scratch the plate up too much. So we're going to get some paper, just to kind of keep that baby free and clear of any scratches. Yep. A little bit of Right in the Rain paper here, that all-weather paper. That's good stuff. If you don't know the Right in the Rain paper, you just head right over to our website where you can pick up some notebooks with that stuff, because that is the stuff. Yep. There we go. Let's see. All right, let's get that pinion right off. There she goes. Popped her right out. That's just pressure fit in there. Yep, looking good. Pull the paper back off. And now's the time for that rack dog to come right off. It's cool. That one has a triangular pin that allows it to sit right on there but not rotate, because you want to make sure that thing's in the right spot. You don't want that thing to have to be adjusted too much. So there we go. I'm sorry, that's the not the rack dog, the gathering pallet, sorry. Yeah, the gathering pallet. We'll take the rack dog off in a second. Oh, wait a minute. A little washer just popped out. You never want to lose a washer, I'll tell you that. Never leave a washer behind in this process. All right, take the wheel off here. Looking good. That's nice. Get that screw right out of there. Beauty. Another tiny little screw. We got all sorts of little screws in this clock. I don't know how they do it when the factory finding all these screws and putting the right ones in there. All right, we'll get the pinion off this side. Yep, I'm probably going to need the little iridescent blue one. There we go. Electric blue. These are fine little watchmaker ones. Let's go. Yep, we'll pull this pinion off. Come back to the bigger ones and pop it off. There we go. That's a nice one. All right, now we got those things and got that all freed up. Now we got to see if we can get some of the plates off to start exposing some of the inner wheels, etc. But let's get rid of this paper and stuff so it doesn't foul up the balance or anything. Balance looks pretty good. I took a look at it under the microscope, and I'm pretty optimistic. You never know what you're going to get in one of these clocks, who did what with it. The last one I did had clearly somebody had dropped it and took forever to fix. It was a mess. Some of the heads of the plate screws, the blued plate screws, which are beautiful, when you turn them, the slot screwdriver just broke the head in half, or the head had already been broken in half from the impact. Luckily, the rest of the clock's still generally intact. It did bend the top part of the balance cover, and so that's what took forever to try to identify. So don't drop this clock if you can all help it. That's going to cause a world of pain for whoever's going to fix it. All right, we got these posts that are screwed on here, and we're going to try to back those off. Oh yeah, more grease. Yeah, we got a lot of grease on this clock. It's going to take some time. We're going to get out the pegwood and some Q-tips and all sorts of stuff. Oh yeah, here we got a little spring we gotta free up. You may have heard there's a dog snoring in the background. That's Pepper. She likes to snore this time of day. We're just midway on the afternoon watch. Now the other thing you can do, they've got this stuff called Rodico or Rodico, depending on who you are. That it's a greenish blue slime type stuff, and it's like a wonder material. I think that maybe NASA developed it or something like that, because you can use it for all sorts of stuff. You can see it's stuck it on here, but it sticks to stuff, and if you put it on there, like I can prevent that little pin from getting ejected out across the room into the carpet, which is a problem. Now, if I had a dedicated clock shop, tell you what, I wouldn't have carpet in it, but until we sort of make $1 million on this, we're gonna need to do what we can. But you can see I just stuck the Rodico right over the end, and it prevents that thing from popping out. There we go. Got the pin for the plate there. I'm gonna do it. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now Rodico also good for like a little bit of pulling up a little bit of oil in a well. You can use it to clean a little oil off, pick up dirt, pick up grime. It's basically your go-to stuff. It's a wonder material, and again, I think NASA developed it probably for astronauts for some purpose, but they never told us what it was, and then they just gave it to like clockmakers and watchmakers and said, hey, here's this really cool stuff. I don't know what it's made of either. It's probably not even declassified at this point, but anyway. Yeah, let's get this one out and pull it out with the pliers. There we go. Pull that pin right out again, a bit of a tapered pin there. And what happens is, and as you go to the newer Chelsea clocks, they use less pins and will be using screws and then E-clips for this kind of function. But there's something nice about these pins actually that I like, because you just tap them in with a hammer, and they're pretty nice that way. As long as you don't shoot them across the room. But you can shoot anything across the room, I'll tell you that. All right, here's the last one. Let's get this pin right off. The other thing you got to be careful of is that when you're handling this clock, it's nice and robust, but if you don't put your finger through the balance. All right, here we go. There's that last pin. Yep, there we go. Nice. All right, let's pull that thing off if we can. Here we go. Yep. All right, now we expose the balance and the platform and all that. It's looking good. Yep. Oh, things seem to be in order. There are those plate screws right there. Set right fine. Nothing damaged. Yeah, there we go. And here we go. We got, that's the regulator arm that helps regulate the time. So when it comes out of the shop, we'll try to have it pretty much in the center there, where the timing of the balance is such that it's not running fast or slow. But on the surface of the dial, that piece connects through, and you can push it one way or the other, which pushes the arm on the top, the balance wheel, to speed it up or slow it down just a hair. Yep. And here we go. We're going to take that off, though. We're going to get that out of the way. Anybody who can hear Pepper snoring under my feet knows that dogs are beautiful when they snore because it's the most peaceful sound. I was actually thinking about seeing if I could record it and then like have a one of those mindfulness tracks on the internet. You know, I probably could make a bundle of money off of that if Pepper was just snoring away. People would eat that up. Love it. Pepper would snore them to sleep at night or meditation or whatever. All right, let's see if we can get this balance off. Take the platform right out. 4 bells. There we are. 4 bells on the afternoon watch here. Sounds good. All right, another tiny little screw. I don't know what kind of screws they have in those things, but man, who makes those little screws too? You know what I mean? Back in 1946, who was making screws that size? What? That's incredible. All right, Lily's coming up and up below us here. It's rooting around. She's trying to see if there are any parts. You can probably hear her sniffing right now, yawning. She's just waiting for something to drop, I'll tell you that. Yeah, she's coming right underneath. Anyway, let's see if we can get this part up. That's loose. Yep, that's looking good. Now we may have to release that plate with the plate screws so that we get it off of that little 4th wheel. So we don't damage anything, rip anything off there. Let's see. They're beautiful plate screws, I have to say. That blued metal, hardened, it's gorgeous material. They make these clocks just like with a lot of love, I'll tell you that. But with a lot of little screws. I don't know, screws are pretty small for my hands. And now, when you're working on watches, I mean, it doesn't compare, but there's something about these screws that seem even smaller than a watch in some ways. A little watch, you gotta have some kind of magnifying glass on your face to do it. And these, you don't have that, but they seem small. I don't know who made these down in the factory. They have had some people with some pretty small hands making those screws because they're so small. Like little leprechauns down there in Chelsea, Mass. They probably have like a whole army of leprechauns at the factory. That's what they had. Just like that Celtics logo, the leprechaun. Yep, army of leprechauns at the Chelsea Clock Company. Just making screws. All those. Here we go. Oh, yep, we're not going to take that off yet. That's looking good. Let's check it out. Oh, yeah. That wheel is beautiful. Look how beautiful that is. Stuck right in there. It's going to be putting that pallet fork back and forth like a just like a beauty. Yep, there it is. You're going to wait on that and disassemble that in just a little bit and just throw that into the one dip. Get her all cleaned up. But that's a separate piece. You can see it's kind of stuck on that thing, and that's one of the challenges of the balance and all that mechanism. You don't want to foul that up. You mess with the balance, you're pretty much toast. If you bend that spring, you're in a world of pain and suffering to try to get that thing back into shape. So you can see it looks good though. I don't see any issues with. Looks like it looks like we got enough space in there. So we're just gonna set that baby down. Just set her. We're gonna set it down and put it to the side, and we'll address that in a few minutes. Now we're going to get those other plate screws off and see if we can get some of these wheels out and check out how, like, what the butcher's bill is, so to speak, on this particular clock. Because you never know. Sometimes those little pivots are an absolute mess. And sometimes they look beautiful. Sometimes you don't need to polish them much at all, although we do polish all those pivots up. We get them shined right up. We might put them on the lathe, it's depending. Just get those things shined up. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I don't see any problems at this point. Teeth look good. No, it doesn't look like there's any damage. Nobody got anything caught. Oh, well, you know what? That's a lot of grease. That is some grease fest in there. It would probably, if I take this thing down to Jiffy Lube, they'll do a better job getting an appropriate amount of grease in there. That thing is covered in grease, leaking out of that thing. Yep. I'm gonna wipe that baby right off just to get a little bit of it out so it doesn't get over everything, but it is not, it is, yeah. There we go, we're gonna set it right there. This other one's not quite as bad. Yes, it's not nearly as bad. Oh, there goes that. All right, yeah, let's put those over out of the way. And we'll start pulling some wheels out here. There we go. Not bad. Yep, there we are. Main wheel is looking good. The pivots look pretty solid on there. I don't see any big pitting or anything, and sometimes things are a little bit bent, or this clock's actually been taken care of, though. It doesn't look, you know, the outside as brass needs a little bit of a scrub, but on the inside, it's looking like we're going to do some good stuff here. We're going to have to, there's some grease in all those pinions, though. Not appropriate. That's a major party foul on the clock side of things, to get grease everywhere. It just gums things up. Especially with this complicated mechanism on the back. The striking mechanism does not like to be coated in grease. It really prevents those levers from springing back appropriately, and you're pretty much in a world of pain if you have grease throughout this clock. So we'll clean it up. Yeah, there's a tiny bit of grease that's going to go right by the click mechanism where we saw that massive sort of grease turd on the underside, but otherwise we're good to go. Yeah, not too bad. All right, let's see. Put that balance to the side. All right, now I said we had the gathering pallet before. Now we got the rack dog coming off with that nice, beautiful, nice triangular structure on it. Yeah, and now we just make sure. Oh yeah, we gotta turn those little pegs off, but yeah, I don't think I can do that by hand. Those are turned on; they're pretty tight. We're gonna need a different solution here. Yeah. I got some silicone pliers, but I don't think they're shaped right for that. They're just too, yeah, they're too tight right now. And you can see if you look closely, I'll show in a second. Somebody put those on there. It looks like an alligator chewed on one of these things, or Lily got it in her mouth and started chewing on it like she chews on her bone every morning. Yeah, there it is. Just chewed up. That's again kind of a no can do for you don't want to have those big jaw marks on any part of the clock if you can possibly help it. I mean, it doesn't affect the working of it on the inside, so fair enough, but you still don't want it in there. So we're going to see if, I don't think these are going to do the job. Yeah, these flat-sided things, they're going to just slip. Yep. But we try it just to minimize the potential that you're going to have contact with a really rough surface. But yeah, that's not going to happen. But thankfully, we got a tool for the job. Yeah, mini channel locks. These are good. Yeah, and I'm not going to put those on without a little protection. But you just put a little bit of paper towel over there, and The nice thing about the channel locks, you can see if you adjust them, the jaws are parallel to one another. And so the amount of force that any part of the surface, even though it has teeth, they don't put a lot of pressure on any of the teeth. And if you just give it a slight pressure, pops it off. Yep, no contribution to any of the crocodile kind of tooth stuff on these. Yep, here we go. That's it. Pop those babies right off. Unscrew. Yep. This one. Yep, that's it. No damage. Just unscrew that little baby. Yep. They're coming right off. Now looking good. Yep. Now let's see. Get this plate. Still got those springs that need to be bent over ever so carefully. There we go. Yep, that's all part of the mechanism that makes the warning lever activate in there. You got some warning levers going on. You got the hammer, all that stuff. That's all, we'll get to that, but basically appropriately adjusted so that right before, a couple minutes before you're ready to strike, it does this thing called it creates a warning, and that sets it in place so that then right on the hour you get the hitting of the gong. Yeah, there we go. And an intermediate wheel, looking good. Yeah, again, a little bit of grease, but other than the grease fest, we're doing a pretty good job. I do not mind this clock at all. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of excess work. I don't even like, yeah, I'll get some pegwood in there and let's just see what kind of, it's going to take some work to get all that out of there. Now you could put it in the ultrasonic for like an hour if you wanted to destroy the clock, and then that would be easy, but you know, I'll take some, we'll do it by hand. I think I'll do the whole thing by hand, to be honest with you. Oh yeah, there it is. There's the grease. That's the stuff. Jiffy Lube and everything. Get that cleaned up though. That's not going to be a big deal to get that. Get the rest of these wheels off. They don't look quite as bad actually. They look all right. And those pivots also look pretty good. We'll shine them up, but it's not too bad. I also did a little shaking of in the pivots. I'll try it again. Just put one in there. There's the fan. Oh, yeah, let's see. The fan's got a little grease, but it's a nice look. It's nice looking, not corroded at all. So whoever kept this kept it reasonably weatherproofed. Ah, look at that plate. Chelsea logo and everything. I'm not seeing too much damage or excess wear in some of these pivot holes, which is pretty nice. Yeah, if you just sort of fit. Yeah. Yeah. It's doing okay. Sometimes you'll get a little oblong eggplant shaped hole you gotta obviously need to put a bushing in and etc. But I'm feeling like we won't have too much excess work to do in this clock. Look at that. Intermediate was nice. And we're good to go. That is a Chelsea clock.